Okay, so we will be doing three job sheet 3, and you're doing task 2 now. So you should have already managed to go to this web URL and download this data. And then what we are going to try and do now is that we want to import the data to Pandas. Now, so this here, as I just changed I did an alternate tab, so now we are seeing my Visual Studio code editor. Okay, so our goal here is that we want to import this data and then store it into Pandas. Now, Pandas is a very powerful library, so we can use Pandas for data analysis. And in order to use Pandas, you have to write your code in Python. So you can see that this writings here, this is Python programming, where you're using the Python language to write some code such that you can print out your data. And we can do many other things in Pandas. So this is just the starting steps. The first thing to do, that is to import the data into Pandas. Okay, so in this piece of code here, we have three parts. We have three lines actually. So it's quite simple actually. So in the first line, we wrote this command, which is import pandas as PD. Now, Python traditionally uses import statements to import their data, or libraries, sorry, import their libraries. So in this case, we are trying to import this library called pandas. In order for pandas to be imported successfully, you should have actually pre-installed pandas. So if pandas was not pre-installed, you would need to watch another video on how to set up Python and pandas. If you didn't set up pandas, this import statement here will fail. Now I've already set up pandas, so it should work right now. Okay, and then on the third line here, we are using this variable. We imported pandas, this is the library, as PD. This is the identifier that we're using. So now pandas is now, the entire pandas library is represented as this word PD. So whatever we use in PD here will refer to pandas. So we are doing PD dot is the accessor, where we can access different methods that is available in the pandas library. So we are accessing this method called read underscore CSV. Okay, so why CSV? Because our data file that we have just downloaded from the earlier steps is actually a comma separated value file. Yeah. Okay. So we are using this function here to read in this data set that we just downloaded. And then we have this very long string here of words. Now, this highlighted words here, it's called a path, or in a proper term, it's called a absolute path. Okay, so the thing I'm writing here are comments. Yeah. If you have done C programming, most of you would have done this in year one, or for the global audience, C programming is it's one of the older languages. So this in C programming, this two slashes here in C programming would mean a comment. A comment is actually something that is ignored by the compiler. So if you write something here, this is not a instruction or code. This is just for us developers to take notes or do documentation and so on. So here we have a comment here. So I'm just using the comment to actually talk about this idea. So this thing here is called an absolute path. An absolute path, this string here, right? So it starts with a open single quote and then it ends with a single quote, close single quote. Yeah. So we have a string of a path. Now, what is a path? A path is basically in our computer file system where this file is located. We are saying that we need to read CSV here. So therefore, we need to pass in a CSV file. In order for the machine to actually know where your CSV file is, you need to tell it where it is stored. And one way to do that is to specify an absolute path. So if I was to explore my computer here, let's open up my file explorer here. Okay, so now this is my file explorer. I'm going to just put this, sorry, I'm going to just put this here. And then we will go to C drive. Yeah. So under my C drive, apparently I have a folder called users. And within this users, I have a folder called IoT lab, right? And within this IoT lab, I have a folder called desktop. And within desktop, I have a folder called IoT database, which is here, IoT database. And within IoT database, I have a folder called job3, which is here, job3. And fruits underscore data, yeah, this is the file, fruits underscore data, which is the property of the file is actually we can actually see the type of the file here, right? Comma separated values. So the extension is .csv. Yeah. So that's how we will decide what we need to write here, okay? On the path, the absolute path from the start to the end. There's another idea which is called a relative path, but we are not going to cover that now, okay? So I hope this second line of code now makes sense to you. Yeah. And on the final line, we have what we call the printing statements. So basically printing is to throw this output somewhere where we can see it, right? Right now, everything is abstract. Abstract means you can't see it. You know that this is loaded into here. When it reads finish, your data will be inside this variable called df, okay? Another interesting, not interesting, maybe another story why we use this variable df. Pandas usually represents its data as data frames. Yeah, data frames. So the common notation that is always used all over the internet and everywhere is df, which is the short form for data frames. Yeah. So just a interesting point. If you're wondering why you always see df, and then we print the variable df. Okay. So in Visual Studio, it's easier to run our code as it has got a lot of good support. So you can see this run button. So once you click run, the output will be thrown onto the terminal. So I'm running my code now. So I should pick up my file and then throw out the data set. Yeah. So it's running. And yes, we see the data file here.